Hi there. Good afternoon, everybody. I think we've got people filtering in, but I'm going to go ahead and just kick things off and dive right in. We'll get a lot of the housekeeping stuff done, and then hopefully at that point we'll have a good quorum of folks on our call today. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Amy Disher. I'm with Southern California Edison. I lead our REACH codes team on our codes and standards team. And while I understand that school districts don't develop REACH codes, I know there's a lot of policy development around electrification. And our team is here to support with multitude of resources that we have available to help you with your clean energy strategies. So we welcome you and are happy that you're here today with what we are calling Flipping the Switch, helping schools achieve clean energy goals. Real quickly, we always like to start our meetings with a safety moment. So in this case, just kicking things off. I know school's been back in session for a couple of months now, but just a quick reminder, when you're driving around school zones, watch for those school buses, watch for those kiddos. A lot of parents tend to double park and kiddos jump out. They might be exiting a vehicle on a non-curbside area of a car. So just being really cautious of where kiddos are at, watching for those school bus flashing lights and where kiddos might be crossing. Also being aware that your child's backpack isn't too heavy so that they can avoid any kind of neck and shoulder strain. Because I know back in the day, I used to just drink my water out of the water fountain, and now we all have big old cups that we take with us, and those definitely weigh down the backpack. So and then likewise, just remembering to have your emergency contacts updated at your child's school, checking in on their mental health matters as well, and just online safety. A lot of kids have phones now. They walk home by themselves or take these buses home, and so they have their own access to the internet and social media. And so just a general reminder that there's a lot of crazy things that go on the internet. So let's just help keep our kiddos safe. So a couple quick housekeeping. Just please remember to stay muted, cameras off. You don't need to have them on unless you would like to. We all have ours on just so you can kind of see our faces and get to know who's going to be presenting here today. Please do feel free, though, to type any questions that you may have into the chat. We will try to address those questions either during the presentation itself or at the very end of all of the presentations. And then this is our last session. We did one a couple of weeks ago. And so upon conclusion of this, by the end of the week, I would imagine, or early part of next week, we'll send out the slides and the recordings will be shared with everybody that's attending. There will also be a survey that's going out following this. So please let us know how we did, what you enjoyed, other topics that you might be interested in learning about, because we'd love to do this again and help you learn a little bit more about electrification, whether it's in the building sector of things or transportation, and how we can help you with implementation strategies. Our agenda today, we're in the intro and kickoff. We are going to kick things off with Andre. He is, maybe you can wave Andre and everybody will know who you are. I know we've got pictures. He'll be leading a food service discussion, and then Desmond from Santa Barbara Unified will be speaking next. And then after that, we will have Romero speaking from SCE on transportation electrification and the advisory services that we have available. And then from Orange Unified Schools District, you will actually see Christina's photo on the next page, but she had a little family emergency, and so her colleague Omar has kindly stepped in to cover their presentation on their school's electrification and the buses that they have in place now. And then last but not least, Riley will from NBI, who we are partnering with on these workshops, will be going over the various funding and resources. And then there should be ample time for Q&A. We did a great job last time. So again, but please feel free to put your questions and answer either in the chat, or there is a box for Q&A, and all of us will be checking both of those to help get your questions answered. Here's all of our mug shots. If you didn't get enough of us currently on camera right now, this is where we're at. This is who we are and how you can find us. And I'm happy to answer any questions offline after if any of you guys need some additional support. So I think with that, I think I'm going to turn this over to Riley, I believe. Do I have one more or?
Nope, I think I'll take it.
All right, perfect. Handing it off to Riley.
Cool. Thank you, Amy. So I'm going to do a super quick level set. Actually, what I'm probably going to do too real quick is have our presenters turn off your cameras just to save any bandwidth. And then as y'all come on, we'll also have them introduce themselves because everyone talks about themselves much better than I can read from a little biography. So excited to have them introduce themselves. I'm going to do a very quick level set though, just like a quick 101 because we're going to be talking about some, a range of topics under electrification, and we just kind of need to understand the landscape that we're dealing with. So one little stat I always love, and when I'm in person or if you all were interacting in a more like interactive way, I always love to ask if people know what this car is. If you do, please put it in the chat. I the average age of public infrastructure in California is 49 years old. So it's like we're driving around these buildings in the version of this car, which I'm going to see if anybody knows what it is in the chat. It's not that different nationwide either. It's like 48 versus 49 years. So we're all basically driving around these 50-year-old buildings that really could use an upgrade and some upkeep. And the most recent report card for America's infrastructure gave schools a D+ grade. Apparently there's a new one of these report cards coming out soon too. So I look forward to seeing what the grade is then. But the point of this stat is that there is a huge need in infrastructure and funding upgrades for schools. It is an Oldsmobile. It's an Oldsmobile Cutlass. Good guess. Also, I love the year. Incredible. One of the important things to think about in these buildings is that we have an opportunity to reduce costs and reduce maintenance and reduce need and do upgrades in these buildings. But we really need to consider the fuel choice in these buildings to do this because fuel choice greatly impacts the costs, so the utility costs, the health of our students, because oftentimes gas and other fuels that are not as healthy as, say, electrification can cause indoor air quality issues, thermal comfort issues, etc. And they, of course, also contribute to carbon emissions. So gas-powered equipment in schools and in many places is common for space heating and then burned for water heating and in kitchens. And so we're going to talk about that today. And then, of course, also in fleet and vehicles. So we get to talk today with a range of our presenters about the different ways to electrify our different end uses. So electrification is a super duper important strategy for managing those things, the cost, the health, etc. It also helps us address things like failing systems. It helps us adapt and mitigate our climate issues and then manage rising costs. One of the things that you'll hear on repeat throughout this webinar is that electrification is not always guaranteed to be beneficial or cost less, and careful planning and thoughtful inclusion in processes and plans is key to managing costs and the outcomes of your electrification. The approach is, of course, impacted by or influenced by a ton of different factors. Timing, again, that's like pre-planning, but we know in schools with shifting priorities, it can be very difficult to pre-plan because emergencies come up all the time. Improvements to adjacent systems, and then, of course, how the occupants and the facility managers and those folks actually interacting with the systems use these systems and are able to maintain and utilize them. Amongst many other barriers, schools face a lot of barriers. So I am acknowledging that there's a lot of other that is not on that list. Really quickly, because our folks are going to talk about different technologies that are implemented, just the major building elements that are impacted by electrification are building systems. So that's like your HVAC, your water heating, your lighting, your kitchen, your controls, etc. That's like where they're plugging their iPads that they're charging these days into. The building envelope, which is the roof, the walls, the foundation, the doors, the windows. And then, of course, if you have it, on-site energy generation and storage. And the important thing about that is that the building envelope really passively impacts your building energy consumption. So arguably it's one of the most important things because if you can get a really tight building, that you don't need a bigger system. So that is already less utility costs and less costs in a system. The building system does define the total magnitude of your energy use. And so a smaller, quieter system probably won't have as much energy use. So they all interact with each other, in different ways to allow us to electrify and to allow us to reduce those costs and the greenhouse gas emissions. On-site energy generation and storage then can help support any additional energy consumption needs and store it for different times and provide backup power in case of resiliency. Our folks today are going to talk way more about the nitty gritties of the technologies. I really love the kitchen technologies. But just for a quick overview of just like which electrification technologies are in schools, again, it's like the space conditioning and ventilation, your HVAC systems, your water heating, your kitchens and your cooking, laundry. In some cases, I know that's not in all schools, and then transportation. And that can be fleet, that can be sort of all the different transportation pieces of the pie. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Andre, who's going to talk about our kitchens and talk about my favorite technologies. Take it away, Andre.
Thank you, Riley, and good afternoon. I hope everybody, speaking of kitchen, I hope everybody had a good lunch, and we'll get right into the kitchen. So there are technologies that are in place now for the kitchens to be going electric. There's probably about 90% a one-for-one out there switching from gas to electric on many of the different appliances and ovens. Next slide. So why electric? We're seeing 2 or 3 times in the testing from DOE to Energy Star to the local rebates that are available to you guys, 2 or 3 times more efficient. It's a lot faster, a lot plug and play, flexible. With the plug and play. Cooler kitchen is probably one of the biggest benefits, especially on induction. We'll get more into that. Easier clean. Some health departments allow up to 2 appliances, whether it's ovens or steamers, for no hood required. And less ventilation. The rule of thumb is probably about 50% on the ventilation, so it can cut down the hood ventilation in the CFM that's required. Next slide, please. So again, why electric, specifically induction? It's fast, flexible, modular, controllable. Biggest components, I would say, for the schools and just overall going electrification, it's safer and lower ambient heat gain. We do have had some hot summers here in California, and so induction provides a cooler kitchen. Next slide. So induction started mainly in front of the house for holding, omelet bars, stuff like that. And so now it's moving to back of the house, but you see some of the items here. There's soup wells, steam wells, single hobs, double hobs, both vertical and horizontally. You can replace 2, 4, 6, and 8, your ranges. If you have 6 burners or 8 burners, the recommendation is going 2 to 1 with induction. Next slide. We see a lot of schools with holding wells, steam wells, wet wells is what we call them, with a lot of older standard heating elements and water. There's a lot of lime and buildup and scaling buildup due to the water. And so we call this dry well. There's no water needed. The pots and pans can offer different sizes. You see there is in hotel pans, round, in different sizes. You can go from countertop to drop in and surface as well. So next slide, we actually did a study with a large chain that had both dining and drive-through. They were getting inconsistent temps due to the water fluctuating. A lot of cleaning, a lot of delining and scale was needed using the wet wells, and they moved over to these dry wells, about 28 of them, circular, round, very precise holding temp. Each well had its own holding temp, and so no water needed. A lot of savings on the plumbing and actually cleaning. There's also enough technology out there for the schools. I know some schools have cold wells and hot wells. There's new technology that have a 2-in-1 where you can actually set 2 pans or holding wells hot and 2 cold, or vice versa, or any type of combination like that. So the technology is very evolving. Next slide, please. So we talked about front of the house. Now we'll move to back of the house. As I mentioned, there's ranges, there's stock pots, which I see in some schools, um, and different items. So there's ranges, as you can see on the right hand there, that either have the ovens built in them, but they have storage if you need storage, and they also have refrigeration. So these multiple ranges come in 2, 4, 6 with multiple different designs underneath, depending on the you know, foot square space in the kitchen. Next slide. As I mentioned, you can replace 2, 4, 6, and 8. Recommendations 2 to 1. If I got 6 burner hob, I would go down to 4. With induction, you use multiple pots and pans, so it doesn't have to dedicate one pot and pan per hob. You can actually put, few more on there as long as they're making the connection. The rebates right now are $250 per hob. If you're going gas to electric, it's up to $500 per hob on the commercial rebate that's available to you guys. Next step. So as I mentioned, there's some stock ranges out there now, up to about 7 kW, very efficient, very quick, easy to clean, nice simple wipe down. And so those are available as well. Next slide. Pizza ovens. If you guys have any type of pizza program within your guys' school district or looking for it, the deck ovens are very efficient. They're really well insulated. This is another technology that well insulated keeps the house, back of the kitchen there cool. The rebate is $1,500 per deck. They're used more for more than pizza. You can do breads, you can do different cookies and things like that. The unique thing is that if I'm buying a 3 or 4 deck, I could set different temperatures on each deck. So I could do cookies at one temperature, I could do pizzas at a different temperature, rewarming, thawing, all of that, retherming. And you can stick your hotel pans directly into these, they'll hold anywhere from 2 to 8 pans per deck. So they're very unique. And again, the rebate's $1,500. It takes about 30 minutes to warm up, really fast and quick, and you can shut them down at the end of the day. Some have them in program restart where you can actually turn them on before you even get to school, and the deck ovens will be ready. So next. Go ahead. Yeah. So ventless advantage, as I mentioned, one of the biggest bonus things about going electric is most health departments, most counties will allow at least 2 pieces. I know most schools use retherms and hot food holding cabinets, which is one of the ovens or holding cabinets that are included in going ventless, and most will allow 2. We've had school districts get an exception to go 6 or 8, working with both the district and the health department and showing some of the EPA testing and results. So you can click on this a couple times here, and again, it just shows that the local code will accept 2. Here's the heat gain to the space. So there's countertop equipment that's allowed as well. Next slide. So this slide is going to show what the local and the California state is allowing. As I mentioned, retherms are a large component of a school district. You can click on this a couple times and you'll see there's, retherms are low convection ovens as well. And you see what's highlighted there that most are allowed 2 units. But moving on to the following slides, you'll see some equipment that has built-in ventless or recircling hoods. So a lot of this equipment is allowed with no hood. It's countertop or double stack or single stack retherms, cook and holds, things like that. Moving on to the next slide. If the hoods are old, you guys are out of space of hood, you can add electric ovens or combination ovens that school districts are moving to with the ventless or recircling hood. You can double stack them, as you see there in the pictures there are mini combis. So from the mini sizes to the full sizes, these ventless advantages include the recircling hoods for these ovens. So if you're out of hood space and if you got power and you got the capacity, you can add these units outside the hood. Next. There's a lot of rapid cook, what we call speed oven, accelerated cooking. This is a lot for retherming, finishing. Again, if you have a pizza program, you can stack 2 or 3 of these conveyors high now because and doesn't require a hood. These are, again, countertop single phase ovens. Conveyors will give you a lot of volume. If you're a central kitchen and feeding multiple schools, these electric conveyors can be stacked and provide a lot of the volume there. And again, not just for pizzas, you can retherm, you can reheat, you can do some breads, cookies, different things like that. Next slide. Again, and so I mentioned the rebates. Here's our statewide website here that you can see the deemed rebates for ovens and anything else you're looking to replace. There's including ice machines, refrigerators and freezers, steamers, the combi ovens. If you're had a particular brand within the district for 10 years and it's held up for 15, 20 years and you want to stick with that same manufacturer, you can scroll by manufacturer and make a model and see what the rebate is. Next slide. On this website as well, there's surveys, there's calculators. You want to compare models to see, which oven saves more, or you're thinking about 2 different models. There's a try before you buy, which is our food service technology center in Irwindale. You can come always and try the different combis. It's a neutral, unbiased kitchen that we can compare oven to oven and things like that as well. We also provide audits and energy surveys to your guys' local schools and locations. This is our direct website here under sce.com, the FTC. That's our kitchen there. As you can see, we have a deck oven. We have up to about 100 different appliances there in stock every day, from countertop to full size combination ovens to try before you buy, consultation seminars, all those we offer. It's part of your bill, and we're here to help. Next slide. And again, if you're willing, we talked about induction. So we offer this program. It's a lending program. You can borrow up to induction up to a range or a stock pot up to 14 days. If you need extension, you can just go on there. So it's almost like an Amazon cart. You pick the unit, you pick the pot, pan, or whatever you want to try, and we'll set it up for you. And you can pick it up, or we can offer delivery as well. So this is a good way to just get the feet wet, just see if stuff is going to work for you, and get educated without buying anything. So here's kind of what the website, I call it an Amazon cart. Again, you go in there and change, you can buy a single hob, you can get a double hob, different pots and pans like that. You basically just build a cart. We put it together for you, and we talk about either pickup or delivery. Again, if you need it more than 14 days, 2 weeks, there's always a simple, you go back in there and ask for an extension, and it's pretty simple. So here's my contact information. I did see a question in the email about how to make an appointment. You can send me an email directly there or give me a phone call. And you can come in, and we'll encourage you to bring your team or anybody that's aware of the current equipment, so we can kind of go over what can we replace and what type of menu and things like that. So you can email me directly there or give me a phone call. We usually ask for about 2 days in advance. We're there 5 days a week from 8 to 5 in Irwindale up to 210. I think that's all I got, Riley.
Awesome. That was great. All right, Desmond, I believe you are up.
All right. Thank you, Riley. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Desmond Ho, and I am the Operations and Sustainability Coordinator, as well as a Project Manager for Santa Barbara Unified School District. So thank you for your time for listening to me to talk about our solar and microgrid projects. Next slide. Hold on. So in my presentation today, I'll be talking about the inspiration behind our projects, how we designed it, the use of a power purchase agreement, and how this project drives our building electrification process. Next slide. So a little bit of our school districts. We have 12 elementary schools, 4 junior highs and 5 high schools, with 3 of those being traditional high schools. About 13,000 students, about 60% now free or reduced price meals. We employ about 1,600 staff, and most of our buildings were built in the 1920s and 60s. And being a coastal district, less than 20% of our classrooms have air conditioning. In fact, about a quarter of our classrooms only have windows and doors as a sole source of ventilation, because a lot of the 1920 era building, including the one you see in the picture here, are on a boiler and radiant heat system. Next slide. So a little bit about Santa Barbara. We rely on our neighboring county to the south for all of our electricity, and some of those power lines run through the Los Padres National Forest, where it's very rugged, and we've have had fires, such as Thomas Fire 2017, that came close to disrupting that power distribution system. And given how remote it is, Edison has said that it would take some time to repair any sort of damage, depending on how extensive it is. Next slide. Just to give you an understanding of our fire risk. So here are some burned areas, and we're starting with the 1980s with that green. Next bit. This is the 1990s. Next, 2000s, 2010s, and the purple is the 2020s. So we are significantly fire prone. And next slide, please. And thinking about the fire and a community resiliency piece, our school district have served as emergency shelters in the past. And we decided to do a microgrid system so that we could power the largest kitchens, gyms, and multi-purpose rooms, so we can help feed and shelter the community when there's a need, such as the Thomas Fire in 2017 that I talked about, the Montecito 2018 mudslides, and then also the flooding that happened in 2023. So what happens is we have one freeway coming in and out of our city here, and when that floods or shuts down, basically cuts us off from our supplies from Ventura and LA counties. So we decided to do it with a microgrid so that it could better position our district to help our students, their families, and the community in the event of natural disasters. Next slide, please. So having a better understanding of our vulnerability, we decided in 2019 to start exploring the installation of solar and pairing that solar with a battery storage system that incorporates smart load controllers, or commonly referred to as a microgrid or behind the grid microgrid. So after we designed it, we ended up with 14 solar arrays, with 6 of those sites having these microgrids. We put the arrays mostly on parking lots and on fields, just to provide shade for elementary school students, and parking lots where it's large enough. A lot of people ask why we did not do rooftop solar. Unfortunately, our roofs are just not in great shape, so redesigning that would have significantly increased the costs. This project is going to cover 70% of our overall electricity use, while offsetting about 93% of our greenhouse gas emissions from utility electricity use. So those 6 microgrids are located at our 3 traditional high schools, 1 junior high school, our district office, because it houses our critical telecommunication equipment, and our warehouse for food storage. Next slide. So microgrids, how are they different than just straight solar and batteries attached to it? Those smart controllers I talked about, we'll take a look at the available battery power, solar availability, power demands, and then switches things on and off based on their predetermined tiers. We established 3 tiers. Tier 1 are going to be the critical loads. So those are our freezers, refrigerators, and the communication equipment at our district office. So we expect that those are going to be up 100% of the time. The next tier, lighting in multi-purpose rooms and gyms, and the site communication equipment, we're expecting about a 7 or 80% uptime. And then tier 3, that's the remainder of the school. But based on the fact that if we were having a sunny day and power went out, the school would not even know the difference. Things would just go on. Next slide. So thinking about finances, our district did not have the upfront capital to pay for the installation of such a project. So we decided to go with a power purchase agreement, or PPA for short. So we pay our provider a 28-year non-escalating rate, flat rate for the electricity that's generated. And we knew that there's going to be construction change order costs, consultant fees, and other legal fees. So we actually negotiated with our provider to increase the PPA rate slightly, and then in return, they gave us a $1.2 million contingency fund. We also tacked on the performance guarantee so that they have to actually provide what they say that they're going to provide. Originally, we were supposed to save 7.7 million over 28 years, but these were pre-COVID electricity rates. As we know, it's gone up a lot since then. So we updated the savings is now 14 million over 28 years. Next slide. So with the introduction of solar and battery storage, it now totally makes sense for us to start phasing out natural gas equipment at our school sites. So one of the first and easier things to do is the natural gas water heaters. There are tons of incentives for removal of natural gas water heaters and installation of heat pump water heaters. As a district, we decided to target 2 existing 500,000 BTU boilers that were original to 2 of the schools from the 1960s that, while still awesome, they were still functioning, which is awesome, but we're definitely on their last legs and not very efficient. And then we targeted all 100-gallon water heaters next because those are typically the ones that get the most use. Initially, we decided to go with a 2-to-1 replacement. So for every 100-gallon gas water heater, we were installing 2 120-gallon heat pump water heaters because we wanted to make sure that the heaters can keep up with the demands of the kitchens and the showers. However, we found that with our district, a 1-to-1 replacement was actually sufficient, provided that you had a storage tank installed with it. So we have approximately 40 of these installed district-wide, and the first batch were installed 3 years ago. None of them, minus one, have had any issues. The one that we have issues is a manufacturing defect, and the users have basically reported no difference in hot water availability. So our district decided to phase in the installation of these heaters, just so that years down the line, when we do have to replace them, we're not getting hit with them all at once. One benefit and also potential problem of these, most of the water heaters, especially at school facilities, are typically in really small rooms with little to no ventilation. Since these heat pump water heaters discharge cold air, a lot of these rooms actually got too cold, and the rooms got too cold, and the heaters will have to defrost and not work efficiently. So if you're going to install these in like small rooms and spaces, I would definitely recommend getting some type of intake or exhaust fan. Or if you have the ability to pipe it into adjacent rooms, such as like a kitchen, that will be super beneficial for the folks in there. Next slide. Another area that we've been targeting with building electrification is the HVAC systems. As I mentioned earlier, less than 20% of our classrooms have AC, and a majority of those that do have AC are the wall mounts in portable classrooms. So a big portion of our existing furnaces are natural gas, and they are also requiring replacement. We've been spending the money to go towards heat pumps instead of replacing like for like. While we are a coastal district, we're actually facing more and more days where it's 80+ degrees, and classroom temperatures mimic outdoor temperature pretty well, actually, unfortunately, because we don't have much insulation. And those temperatures are actually pretty counterproductive to student learning. So 2 years ago, we had 3 wings of a high school whose 1960s era furnace finally gave out. Instead of spending about 1.5 million on replacing it with like for like, we decided to go for rooftop heat pumps, which more than doubled the cost, but having solar definitely helped shift the calculus of that. One small issue that we encounter since switching out to heat pumps, a lot of teachers are used to having windows and doors open, and they're having a difficult time shifting to closing all those things. So we found that installing door or window switches that disable the compressor or heating coils after a time delay if the doors or windows are left open is a very effective way of saving energy and also the equipment. Next slide, please. So a lot of our buildings historically only draw 100, 150 amps at most because most of the equipment was historically natural gas. So one issue with electrification that we're running into is that our existing transformers and switchgears were not adequate for the new loads that we're introducing. So with any sort of electrification projects, first thing I would do is find an electrical engineer, have that person tell you whether you got enough existing power to do what you're trying to do. If the answer is no or even maybe, make sure that you get SCE involved. They've got a lot of customers, and therefore the planning process to get new electrical to your site is going to take some time. If you're doing something like what we're doing, where we're switching the whole campus to heat pumps, where we need a very large service upgrade, also make sure that you have some budget set aside for this work. For example, our district received a $6 million California Energy Commission CalShape grant for HVAC upgrades, but we're probably going to have to spend a good chunk of money to from our bonds or other funds in order to upgrade our electrical. So make sure you count for that. So what's next for us? We're starting to look into electrifying our kitchens, and hopefully we're going to find a pilot kitchen that's willing to do this and work with us on that. Next slide, please. With that, thank you all very much for your time. Here's my contact information, and I'll hand it back over to Riley.
Great story. That map you show gets me every time with the fires and everything. Thanks so much, Desmond. I'm going to pass it off to Ramiro.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ramiro Lepe, and I am the Senior Advisor representing Southern California Edison's low to no cost EV infrastructure installation pathway, also known as Charge Ready Transport. Now, before we commence, a lot of school districts here on the call, I recognize a lot of the names here in the chat. And if you are considering or even inkling the idea of transitioning your fleet to electric, there's probably three main things that are on your mind today. The first and foremost, you might be wondering, what does it actually take to install commercial EV infrastructure at your particular location? Or quite possibly you're thinking, how can I access the technical assistance that's needed that would actually provide you with all the resources and tools to actually make this a reality? And then comes the conversation of financial offsets. So what EV grants, resources, infrastructure installation programs are available to help offset the cost of the transition? So Riley, we'll go over to the next slide. And it's quite possible that you may even be asking yourself, where do I even begin? All right, team. So I have worked with just about over 150 school districts in my tenure here at SCE. And one of the things that we always do when we talk to school districts is we always want to figure out where that school district is at today in terms of fleet electrification, where they want to go. And then it's our job to help you guys build a bridge as to how to achieve your goals through our various grants, resources, and infrastructure installation pathways. Now, one thing I want to make sure that we do is that we make this session all about you, all about your goals. So definitely do ask questions in the chat. We'll certainly stop along the way. And yes, I will be available for anybody that would need a consultation to go over your specific fleet electrification strategy. All right, so with that, how do you work with SCE for your power needs? That always happens to be a hot topic of conversation. Is it as easy as picking up the phone, calling Amy or myself and saying, hey, SCE, we need power? Well, there's a lot of things that actually go into the fleet electrification process. And one thing that you always hear utility reps talk about, and we say it and we instill it, and you guys might even throw me out of this webinar for saying this, but it's to hold engagement with us early and often. But what does that really mean? Well, what it really means is that every EV infrastructure installation program, or should we say project, is a major construction endeavor. If you get nothing out of this conversation, please just know that, right, going into it. So where does the utility fall into all this? Now, outside of just bringing you power, which is obviously the obvious answer, is making sure that you do consider us as a partner. Now, the reason why we say this is because the majority of school districts like yourselves, the majority do have an assigned account manager. For those that don't, we have an e-mobility team where we default and we step in to just make sure that we are supporting you every step of the way. We have quite a bit of different programs. So our transportation electrification advisory services are here to provide you high-level overviews. We have first points of contact for you. We have technical support. We're even doing sessions where we're actually helping you create your own ZEV transition plans. So those are all items that we do cover, but that all brings us over to what we call our transportation electrification pathway. So go over to the next slide, please. So really, one of the things when we mentioned a little bit ago was we want to find out where you're at, where you want to go, and injecting you, to the right program at the right time. We really have programs and self-service tools that are available to you now to really help you at any stage of your journey. Whether you already have buses on order or even white fleet for that matter, and you're looking to actually have them deployed here in the next few months, or quite possibly you might be early on in the transition stage and really trying to figure out total cost of ownership. ROI, what grants are actually available? Is this charger manufacturer even going to be here in 6 months from now to make sure that we're making that right procurement decision? These are all items that we can assist with. So what you're seeing there, all those bubbles, those are all indicative of different self-service tools, programs, and different resources that we have from you. So today we're going to double down on some of these. So the ones that I feel are most relevant to an early stage conversation is the fact that we do have a total cost of ownership tool. So Riley, if you go to the next slide, please. Let's get into that one. So if you are looking to figure out the cost of combustible, right? So you might be looking at electrification thinking, well, Ramiro, let's see, electrification sounds great, but what's my bill going to look like? What is the cost of diesel versus that of electricity to look like for my particular use case? So this particular tool will help you figure that out, and plus a whole lot more. It also includes financial incentives, low carbon fuel standard credits. You could actually input a specific OEM and model of a bus or even a white fleet asset, and it'll actually give you your actual total useful life requirements, what you can expect to pay over time. And then what's really cool, you can impress the board by clicking print and have a nice little presentation that you can share with your team. So that is available. That is a tcocalculator.sce.com, and I will certainly get you guys links for you guys to access after the fact. Go to the next slide, please. All right, so once you got your TCO all lined up, you're like, okay, this might not be that bad of a deal after all. The conversation of infrastructure comes in, and you start hearing all the nightmares, right? Oh my God, it took us 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to build out the infrastructure. Well, outside of the time perspective, which we will certainly cover today, also comes a conversation of how to offset the cost of the transition. So we do offer what we call a low to no cost EV infrastructure installation program by the name of Charge Ready Transport. And what it essentially does, it allows you to install distribution of the meter. So think power lines up into a whole new meter. And then we'll give you 2 options on your side of the meter construction, which we're going to get into in massive detail here in a second. Now, I will make a special announcement here that this particular program, we still have funding. There is still a little bit of time, but as of today, we are open for this program till December 31st of next year. We are anticipating a cutoff for applications right around June or July. So I would definitely urge, if you guys have any inclination to participate, we could certainly host a call, go over your specific scenario, and see if this is the right vehicle to help you achieve your electrification initiatives. Now, with that, this particular program, one of the really cool items about it, the way it works, is for the purchase or lease or any kind of acquisition of a qualifying asset, we will allot you 1 charging port as part of the process. Now, a qualifying asset in terms of Charge Ready Transport, that would be any 100% electric vehicle that is a Class 2 all the way to a Class 8. So you could think pickup trucks all the way out to a Type D school bus, everything in between. And it also covers off-road. So if you have refrigeration, if you're doing forklifts, anything of that nature, that would also qualify under our program. So go to the next slide, please, ready? All right, guys, so let's dive into the infrastructure piece of it. And I'm literally giving you the hour-long presentation and a condensed version of time here. But what we would do is we would give you 2 options of construction. So if I could please have you guys look at the left side of your screen where you see everything in yellow. So essentially what we would do programmatically is we would cover all of the elements that you see there in yellow, essentially highlighted in yellow. So that's upgrading, replacing, or adding a transformer, running a brand new service to a whole new meter, and we'll actually inject a special rate structure just for your EV charging to that rate, to that meter. Now, here's where it gets interesting. We'll actually come onto your side of the property. We'll install the panel switchgear. We run all the trench, all the wiring, all the cabling, all the way out to the first point of connection between the charging station and the physical infrastructure. So under the SCE built option, the only item that the district would be responsible for would be the EV itself, the charging station, installation and permitting of the charging station. SCE would cover everything else. So the planning, the design, the engineering, the build out, the human resource capital, all that is baked into the program itself. All right, guys, so that is option number 1. Option number 2 would be what we would call the customer built option. So this is a little bit more, some advanced bells and whistles. If you want to add them to your project, this would be the option for you. So here what we're doing, we're still doing the same distribution and meter upgrade that we just discussed. Variance, though, is that anything on your side of the meter would be full responsibility of the district. Now, that installation for anything downstream of that meter would have to be done with IBEW labor. So that's an important note to make. But here's the kicker. What this program will do is we would actually rebate you up to 80% of the project cost for you embarking on that journey. And yes, you can stack this with external programs. So if you're looking at doing ZESB, possibly Air Quality Management District's Invest Clean, or you're getting HVIP for the buses, etc., you can stack funds with Charge Ready Transport as long as you do not exceed 100% of the actual cost of the project. That would be the only limitation. Now, wait, there's more moment. This program embedded into it also has a charger hardware rebate of up to 50%. So because you are a school district, your yellow fleet would automatically qualify for additional rebate that ranges from $1,900 up to $39,200 per physical charger. Now, there's a lot more that goes into that. We can certainly have that discussion, but just know there is a financial offset potentially also for your yellow fleet. And there might be a pathway that we could look at also offsetting the cost for white fleet should you decide to go in that particular nature. All right, guys, so let's go to the next slide. All right, so once again, every EV charging infrastructure project is a major construction endeavor. What you're seeing here on this laundry list, this is really the top 6 culprits of elements that could potentially delay a project. Now, to kind of give you an average, I just showed you guys a charge ready transport program. That particular program has an average infrastructure installation timeline of approximately a year and a half to 2 years from the time that you apply to the program to the time that infrastructure is physically in the ground. Now, I will make the caveat of stating that is without DSA. So if you do have a division of state architects requirement, you could add another year, possibly up to 2 years is what we've seen historically. But we do have internal subject matter experts that know that particular provision extremely well. So once we're in those discussion points, we could certainly bring that up and give you an idea as to what that would look like for your site. But top items that we see that delay a project are site characteristics. So is there any underground utilities? I know a lot of you districts, you guys have on-site fueling. So making sure that we have the proper setbacks, see if there's any environmental considerations because of that, or possibly some underground easements that might pop up. Those are things that we see. Site-specific capacity is also a big one. So how much power is available? So we do have a tool, which in about 5 clicks or less, I can give you an estimate. So we could certainly do that exercise together and try to give you an estimate as to how much power is available, not just to the local circuit or possibly circuits, depending on where you're at, but also to that local substation. So it helps with the conversation of time frame. Permits and clearances. So utilities, we have to have permission for everything that we do. Even doing a project such as this also does involve getting permits and clearances from the areas having jurisdiction. And that also includes getting permission from your actual board of directors. So these particular projects do require easements that do not allow for red lines. So those are all conversations that we need to have to make sure that we're all aligned before embarking on this journey together. Materials and equipment are also a big thing. So we've seen scenarios where switchgear may be delayed. Some customers, sometimes they'll go the customer built and they're ordering the wrong equipment. We've seen those scenarios. So those are items that could delay. And then also customer engagement. So at some point, it's almost like tossing the football, right? So we'll come up on our side, we'll wait for the customer to get back to us. But let's just say this is a real world example that you're choosing a bunch of 19.2 kilowatt chargers. You go through all the design, you sign agreements, everything's great. And then when it comes time to issue POs, you're signing POs for 60, 90, 120 kilowatt chargers. We've literally had that happen. That would actually delay your project. So these are all items that can delay and add constraints to your project. So we want to make sure that we are engaging early. That's the reason for that. All right, so go over to the next stage. All right, so time frame. So once again, engage with us as early as possible on your project, but kind of as a rule of thumb, right there in the middle, you can see where it says any size project. Here's kind of the timeline as to when you should reach out to us. So if you have a project of any size, it needs to be at least 2 years out. If you are looking at a 3 to 10 megawatt project, which is not usually as likely for school districts, but we're looking at no minimum of 3 years, and anything that's 10 or above megawatts of demand, we definitely want to have engagement no lesser of 5 years. Now, let me kind of put in perspective, site upgrades do take time. So we're looking at upgrading existing circuits. So these are already circuitries already going to your facility. We need to make upgrades to that. There's not enough power available. That is 18 months plus. If we need to run a brand new line from the substation out to your project, that's approximately 3 years plus. And for new substations, I know the conversation for that one might not be as dense here, but you are looking at 6 years plus. And I can assure you that a majority of that is all just getting the right permits, easements, right-of-ways, encroachments to be able to actually conduct these projects. So that's really where the bulk of the project actually takes time. The construction piece of it is actually a little bit faster than that. All right, guys, we'll go to the next slide. All right, so if I just talked your ear off right now, you're saying, Ramiro, this is a lot. We don't even know where to start still. This is where I would recommend if you fall in that scenario to start off with. So we do offer what we call an EV readiness study. Now, this is not just for medium and heavy duty fleet electrification. This would also be for multifamily and commercial property. So if anybody on this call is interested, this is a free service that we do provide, and it is a high level overview of the fleet, the site, and we're going to get into funding and the best strategy to help you achieve your electrification goals are all conducted on this free study. You can literally have this back in your inbox. We do about an hour consultation that comes along with it. Usually it's about a week and a half, a 2-week turn time from the time that you request to have the study done to the time we meet with you and actually have the study back in your inbox. So definitely take advantage of this free opportunity. All right, guys. Well, thank you for your time. And Riley, I think we might have some questions, but back to you.
Great. And I'm actually just going to move right on to Omar at, well, here's your contact information. Sorry, I missed that.
Oh, I forgot I had that in there. Yes, if you guys have questions, you just want to schedule a one-on-one, definitely scan that QR code and reach out to me anytime.
Great. And I'm going to pass this on to Omar here to talk about the sort of like implementation of what EVs look like. And then we'll do some questions and I'll do some resources. So Omar, off to you.
Well, thank you, Riley. Thank you again for having us. Omar Dina, Transportation Manager for Orange Unified School District. And this is just a little bit of our infrastructure currently that we have at OUSD and how we have been able to kind of sustain a 3-phase approach on growing our electrification here at our district. So let me get started with that. Next page. Well, everybody asks why electric vehicles. Well, we know that obviously over the years, fuel costs in California has risen. So obviously that's one of the major factors. But now with electric vehicles, we also have the zero emissions on electric vehicles. Obviously the cleaner environment, that's always an aspect that parents want to know that their students are being transported in the cleanest vehicles with less pollutants out there. The reduced fuel and maintenance cost is one of those items that definitely we've seen a reduction in when we're transporting now students in electric vehicles rather than what our old vehicles we used to have, which was our diesel buses. That's a reduction in the fuel cost there for the diesel, now moving into the electric side with the rates that we currently have and being able to charge vehicles at a lower rate as well. The change in the emissions regulations, obviously in California, there is regulations where diesel vehicles in certain areas under the SoCal, the California Air Resources in certain areas in California restrict certain areas of buying specific vehicles. For example, here in Orange, we're only allowed now to buy the electric vehicles, at least through funding sources. There's no more option for us to get diesels or even the compressed natural gas vehicles. So those are some of the things of the challenges that we have, and that's what we've been able to use now. Incentives, obviously, there's a lot of grant funding over the years that has been out there and ways of you getting funding for it to gain electric vehicles. Also being able to get the LCFS credits and in some infrastructure as well, the V2G credits that could be done with a specific type of infrastructure you have. Next slide. So our OUSD fleet electrification overview, as you can see, we have a total of vehicles in our fleet of about 120. We have currently in operation 17 electric vehicles. All of them are Type Ds. In our phase 1, it was completed already. That phase started back in, I want to say back in late 2019, at least the phases of the planning stages and finalizing it back in 2022, I believe. There's 15 Bluebird, the T3 REs that we ended up actually acquiring through grant funding. We have 15 newbie 19.2 kilowatt slow chargers. That was for our first phase that we got, and everything was actually funded through the Charge Ready Transport, at least with the infrastructure itself, which was the SoCal Edison built. And that's what actually wanted to remember his name, Ramiro was talking about earlier. That is the program that we utilized. Phase 2 is currently in progress. We're actually in our final stages on that. We're finalizing some documentation as we just finalized all our chargers. Currently, we have the A Bluebird buses again, the same as the previous ones. that we had funding through various different sources to include 8 microbirds that we were also able to actually gain through a lot of the funding sources that we got as well. Currently, there's also 13 newbie 19.2 kilowatt slow chargers that we actually acquired, and as well as 3 of the newbie 60 kilowatt V2G charger stations that we also acquired. That's a little bit fast charger, and obviously for our operation, we needed something that we can actually utilize for fast charging, as well as the slow chargers that are kind of like take a little bit longer. Again, that's also through the Charge Ready Transport Program, and it was already built and completed. But again, it's just the final stages of the documentation that needs to be still finalized. And we're now moving currently in our phase 3, which is now in progress, the planning process of it, where they've already come and again did the analysis of our area of where is best to set up the new charging station. For this one, we also have 10 microbirds that are going to be coming in. Obviously, they're from the BAP, or 7 more buses that are going to be coming through. And that's again based on the facility sizing that we currently have. We've established to get 5 16 kilowatt V2G fast chargers, and as well as 5 160 kilowatt V2G fast chargers. This will kind of give us a better solution to have fast chargers as well as the slow chargers. So especially when we're having now with our operation that you have buses coming in and out throughout the day, and sometimes drivers require those buses within an hour or 2 hours. So having those fast chargers definitely makes a big change in our operation and the way we can actually be more efficient with our units that we currently have in here. Next slide. The feasibility of transitioning to electric, obviously there's a lot of different facets of it. The operation and considerations and regulatory factors, those were 2 of the things that we definitely had to look into as we started this process early on. I know the director, Christina, had to start looking into how best to start looking to replace our old aging fleet. Most of our fleet, again, had well over 300,000 miles on some of our diesel buses, and our vehicle maintenance was doing the best they could to maintain them alive. And since we were not allowed to really purchase any more diesel buses, obviously those considerations, the operational part of it, as well as the regulatory factors and the ability to purchase additional vehicles, at least that style, was kind of like going away. So that was one of the biggest factors into actually transitioning to the electric. The charging infrastructure and site planning, that definitely has taken years. As you can see from the first phase, it took well over maybe 2.5 years. I would say that ran during the COVID years fairly smoothly, taking all things in consideration. But definitely things can come up and can delay your infrastructure from being completed. Some of the funding and incentives, obviously, SoCal Edison having those grant programs to actually create a Charge Ready program definitely helped a lot. Also, some of those incentives through getting grant funding for all the buses, that was also at the same time. So I think everything just lined up properly to be able to start establishing early on a plan of replacement of vehicles and what we're going to get, and also start planning what we can do in our infrastructure to sustain the new vehicles that we're going to be coming on board. And again, the utility management, engagement and manage of the charging stations. Currently with the program for Nuvi that we have, which is our charging stations, we have a program which is an online-based program where we can actually track and see how fast our vehicles are charging, how much kilowatts are actually being pushed into the buses, how long it's taking, whether a bus is ready, whether there's issues going on with certain chargers, or if anything is happening. That's an easy way to access that, and also engage again with the utility itself and manage the charging of the vehicles. And again, the environmental impact and stakeholder engagement, that's very important. Obviously, before even starting the process of creating the new infrastructure, all that planning had to go into effect and figuring those challenges. But also stakeholder engagement was ensuring that we had communication with our community, those that actually we serve in our district, the community, anybody with a local city, and again, just all those various different groups that we had to deal with. Training and maintenance, that was another aspect that was actually, when you're thinking of transitioning, you have to start thinking as to how you're going to actually train and get a buy-in from your employees and drivers out there. And the operational readiness, having your maintenance being trained to make sure that they have vehicles always consistently running. And if there's any hiccups or issues with the technology, having the right resources so that we can communicate properly and take care of those maintenance issues. Next slide, please. Some of the key steps for a successful SEV transition, and obviously with SEV, it's the zero emission vehicles. One is having a comprehensive fleet assessment, define goals and objectives. If understanding what are your vehicles, how long you've had the fleet for, what are some of those challenges now maintaining an older fleet versus gaining a new fleet. Oftentimes you spend a lot more money actually maintaining old fleet. So sometimes it's best to have a good replacement program early in place and know what's coming up already or things that are already breaking down. So this takes years. Oftentimes it could take a 5-year plan to get vehicles, at least for us to know what we have, but it could be even longer to having a 10-year plan, depending on the mileage that you put on those vehicles. So defining your goals as to how long you want to have a vehicle in your fleet versus the objectives as to what's going to happen or what do we plan to do as part of their transition into a newer vehicle. And in this case will be our electric vehicles was very important. So understanding those and having a good defined goals and objectives is going to be important. The roadmap for implementation and infrastructure, the outline phase approach. Outline phase approach is very important. Obviously, you notice that we've had 3 different phases. The first phase starting off in 2000 and moving now into 2025. Currently, we're in our 3rd phase. So we did not plan to do everything at once and have a disruption not only at our facility with the infrastructure built, but also a disruption where some of your purchases through vehicles, if you're getting grant funding, it's gonna actually determine by how many vehicles you have to have in place for as a replacement to be able to actually afford that infrastructure as well. So planning ahead and understanding that you don't want to have everything at once because things could happen. And if you have deadlines of having certain vehicles in play, that could be a problem. We know that for the last couple of years, even the EV buses, there was a backup, or at least if a lot of vehicles were being purchased, therefore, so if you had an order, it might take up to a year just to receive some of those buses. Early on, we were waiting for 6 to 7 months on some of those buses. So it's very important to have an early plan to understand what you need so that way you can at least plan by settings or at least having stages plan and you don't have a lot of disruption going on, but also can impact also your finances as well within your district or maybe some of those grant fundings that you might have. Some of the stakeholder engagement and partnerships, again, internally is within our community, our school district, our employees. If you have a union representation or various different groupings within the district, your cabinet members, the board, they'll have to have a buy-in and have at least an idea of what the cost is going to be of ownership of the vehicles and maybe the savings that also is going to bring up. The external part when it comes to the engagement is the partnership. Like Romero said, it's great to have the partnership with SoCal Edison and any of those groupings on the outside so that you can start planning and communicate consistently. I would say communication has been a key part of ensuring that your actual infrastructure is being built in a timely basis. More if there's hiccups that come along the line, such as parts. We've definitely encountered some issues with parts having delays, but because of the communication was consistently ongoing, there was always a double check consistently, and I believe that helped at least be on top of it and not just have something that is kind of like behind your head that you're going to forget about. So that communication with the partners is very critical if you want to have the infrastructure and at least also the acquisition of buses as well with your vendors to be on top of it. And when it comes to the external part is also your vendors, whoever you're buying buses. If you have a good vendor salesperson, they will also help with a lot of the grant funding out there. A lot of times they actually will write the grant funding contracts for you and submit them and help you submit them yourself. So that way you could get the most out of any type of programs that are out there, which I'll discuss a little bit in a later slide. So that's very important as well. The training and support program, obviously, very, very, very proactive on whatever you do when it comes to the training. It's a new technology, so most drivers that are used to driving vehicles that are whatever the compressed natural gas, CNG, gas fueling, they're going to sense a difference. So understanding of a buy-in of what the type of new type of systems that are out there, such as that technology, it's going to be huge. And I think most people, once they start getting into some of these vehicles, they realize that they're actually pretty good and very comfortable. So your shop also has to definitely get a lot of training on their side to be able to support the fleet in order to support the drivers out on the road as well. But the training aspect definitely has to be a robust training program, learning all the procedures on those type of buses, the type of capabilities the vehicle has, what can they do or can't do. That's very important. Next slide. As you can see, the EV infrastructure installation support layout, you can see the phase one, that was our original phase that we created. And again, it starts with your main electrification, creating all the trenches that are going to be going in your yard, the disruption that you're going to be encountering. So it's very critical having a lot of communications. Your maintenance and operations, obviously, department, facilities has to be definitely involved because they're the ones that are going to know what needs to happen within their facilities itself, and anything that has to be arranged with any outside sources. So that's very critical. Again, phase one, understanding where you're going to have your first phase and also making a connection to your phase two if it's going to be relative next to each other. So if you see the site layout on your left, that's a phase one and phase two together. So when we planned the first phase, we already had envisioned the second phase being right next to each other. So that way you could have a full alignment of our current buses that we normally have already, which are footers or type D buses. So that definitely helped analyze and understand what we wanted to have, but also how it was going to impact us in the later time. So these are some of the things that definitely we looked into, and how you can actually process, also understanding new transformers and the gears, switch gears, where we want to install it so that one, it doesn't impact also employees from other departments, but also it can be sustained in the areas that you currently have. Finding areas like this was very important. And again, you could kind of see the amount of work it took just to ensure that these phases ran smoothly. Next phase. Our final phase that we currently have is again, we have different options that we have there. When they came out, they obviously walk the yard with you. They go out to your location where you want to install it based on what you're trying to install in your next phase. In this case, our chargers, those chargers are a lot bigger. So we had to make sure that we had the right type of size of area that they can actually utilize, but also in an area where it wasn't gonna be creating additional challenges for you as well for your fleet. In this case, we chose phase option one through with SoCal Edison. Obviously, they confirmed it based on what they saw and what we believe was going to be the best location for it. But having various different options helps view everything when it comes to what you want to do. But ultimately, everything has to kind of align to what SoCal Edison also needs for their actual electrification part. Next one. These are some of the grants and incentives that are out there. Some of you might be aware of those. Obviously, there was the VW mitigation back in 2021 trust fund, SoCal Air Resources Board, which the HBIP, those are hybrid vehicle incentive programs. In 2022 and 2023 and 2024 they were given, and currently pending is the EPA HBIP and the Home to School Transportation Plan. Those are some various different sources of funding that you could get, which obviously helps tremendously for school districts avoid having to come out of pocket as much. Most of our out of pocket that we've experienced has been primarily the taxes that we have to pay on certain parts of the vehicles or any of the other stuff. But again, you know, those are some of the funding resources that are out there and incentives that you can get. As you can see, the funding amount that we've received over the years has been significant. In 2021, it was a 2.8 million, then 800,000 for the other one on 2022. 2023 is 1.26, 2024 396, and the biggest one that we're pending is 5.57 million. So these are some of the, again, the fundings and the incentives that are out there that you can definitely do. The challenges currently that we have going on, obviously, we know that there was a change when it came to administration. So things have been put on hold. And oftentimes when you're working with your vendors, they're very good about telling you, hey, this grant has just been pushed through, you know, make sure that you get it, or make sure it's been submitted, or be on the standby where they're going to be announcing the new grant funding and see if you already got that. Again, everything takes time. The funding timelines, it went from being a 1 year to a 1.5 years to 6 months, and currently right now is at 1.5 years. Again, when you submit the grants, most of them are submitted well in advance so that you can hope that you're going to get that funding there or those grant money. And not necessarily that you have to use it, but that's there for you when it comes out.
Hey, Omar, I don't mean to hustle you, but I want to get to questions and we got a couple
Yes.
more slides. So if you want to move through the next ones, then we can come back around to our friends.
Thank you.
Thank you. There we go.
Navigating range anxieties, again, the rate of optimization and planning, route designing, data analysis, that has to change a lot. The battery management and range assessment, the maintenance and energy management, those are all critical components as well. What we're dealing with the buses, the flexibility, the availability, obviously monitoring and having feedback of your drivers, but also monitoring what's happening on the road. And again, EV's bus specs, the battery size. Every bus is equipped with specific battery sizes, so it's critical for you to, when you do your vendors, ask them what sizes they have. Next slide. Driver and mechanic training, I think I kind of just covered that earlier a little bit again. Just having a comprehensive training program is important. Familiarize the staff with the infrastructure, how to utilize these charging stations, feedback and support. Having a buy-in from your drivers, it's great and it's important, but also they can give you a lot of information that at times you can't get on your own. And as covered earlier through Nuvi, we do have the data managed charging. This is how it kind of looks, a little bit snip view of what it looks like when we're viewing our buses, whether they're plugged in, not plugged in, if they're charging, how many kilowatts per minute that they're doing. This is how you can actually definitely see what's happening out there. And in summary, again, some of the achievements: reduce emissions, operational cost savings have been dramatic, improve rider experience, challenges, range limitations of the bus battery, charging times, slow chargers versus fast chargers, space constraints, depending on the charging stations you have. driver monitoring and data utilization. Obviously, that's important when they're charging their vehicles. And some of the lessons learned is address infrastructure needs early on, scalability considerations. I mean, again, have a scale approach through phases, and I think that's going to be the most important way to do things. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know we're running a little low on time and we have some Q&A. So what I think I'm just going to do is just show you that these slides are here and they'll be posted. And actually the first recording of this has a little bit longer discussion of some of these resources. So I'll just maybe point folks to that. But just to show you there's just a summary sort of the different funding approaches for schools on a larger range, smaller range, federal, et cetera. And really a through line through all this is a way to pay for all this stuff is by stacking what you can find, the incentives, your bonds, your loans, and things like that. And obviously using a little bit of creativity. And I know my colleague Shannon and I are here to help if you need to talk through that sort of funding stacking approach. I will skip this example. Just know that there are a bunch of different folks using different funding mechanisms to stack to create larger projects and smaller projects. One thing I will say is obviously the federal funding landscape has changed quite a bit. And there's some really smart folks at Undaunted K-12 that have a website devoted to sort of decoding this. The one thing I did highlight is that if you're looking into a ground source heat pump, Section 48 is actually good to go. So that one will not sunset earlier like the other ones. So if you're looking into a ground source heat pump, you're in luck. Everything else has some different timelines. So again, you can look into this hub from our friends at Undaunted. There also, if you're looking for, this is just some of these questions about like different utilities and their incentives. The Desire database, this one, I don't know why that printed twice in there, is a database of all the incentives for renewables and efficiency state by state. So like I highlighted California there, but I don't know if you're here and you're from Minnesota, like we can find Minnesota for you too. One thing to highlight is that with SCE, we've been putting together all of these different opportunities and funding mechanisms. It's online at that tools for electrification tools. Shannon put that in the chat early on, but we can put it in again. And it's only as good as the data we receive. So if you have stuff you want to add to that, please do. Please send it our way. We're super happy to add things. Or if you're like, I'm in I don't know, King County, Washington. That's probably not a great example on California, but here we are. If you're in King County and you're looking for financial resources, just let us know and we can do a little research for you. Other California quick highlights, there's several different local or state level funding mechanisms. There's this efficiency program that does zero interest loans. I like this Proposition 2.1 to highlight too, because it is money allocated for new construction and modernization in small school districts. So if you're a small district, tap into that one. And then just quickly, this is that web page that has that funding tracker and some other things we've put together. I would love to talk to you more about the resources. So if you're just trying to understand this landscape and need a little help, please reach out to us. Our email will be here shortly. But this webpage has guides, it has a cost dashboard, it has fact sheets, it has that funding tracker, tips and tricks for grant writing, and some templates. Like if you're trying to pass a policy, there's a template for that in there. One of the things in there, you can sort of do your own research about this, but basically there's this cost tool that can help you sort of understand upfront costs for different electrification technologies. The costs are for California, but are very, applicable sort of nationwide. It also has this full-scale toolkit, which is focused on decarbonization in schools. We put this together actually with 60 of your California school district friends some years ago with the state architect, and it's still holds. Here's just a picture of some of the sample templates. And Amy put this in the chat earlier. I'm so glad you did that because SCE just recently launched the third volume of these like zero carbon case studies. And these are great. They have like finance information in there. And so check that one out. I actually got to see the hard copy of it in person the other day. It was really cool. And then if you need help, please let us know. Just send us an email. We're super happy to talk to you about different topics. This is not inclusive. Basically, if you're on this electrification journey, either as a school or someone supporting schools, we are here for you. All right. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing because there's at least one hand up, which I love. I'm here for people asking questions. So go for it, Gail.
Hi, I'm Gail Hoffman. I've been working as an energy manager for a federal facility in Monterey, California, changing things up. So first, I wanted to just share some information that I have used in my position, but then I had some things for Desmond that maybe we can even talk to off site. Because it's October, I just want to share with everybody, one of the things that my job included was sort of outreach and engagement about energy efficiency and conservation. So I just want to remind everybody, Energy Action Month is October. They use the Halloween theme and they talk about slaying the vampire loads in buildings and houses and stuff like that. So I highly encourage everybody to make use of that. The experience that I got was kids as well as adults loved all of that sort of stuff. So it's a good opportunity to do. So it's it's electrification related. So the Energy Action Month, you can still find a lot of resources. I think even SE has resources on the website, but that's something that I've done. And then for Desmond with electrification, so I was also at the federal facility I've been working at doing electrification, modernization, and decentralization. Just wanted to kind of ask or share some information that I was doing with your school district. Do you have any commercial laundries? I heard you mention showers and toilets and things, but do you have any like large wastewater generating facilities in your school district?
No, we have a few washer and dryers for the custodians, and some of the special education classrooms might have it, but nothing large.
Okay, what I wanted to share with something that I was initiating with NRL in Golden, Colorado was a wastewater heat recovery system. So it takes the wastewater from like large commercial laundries and then transfers the heat from the wastewater to then heat the next load of laundry or the water for the next load of laundry, things like that. They also see for places that have humidity problems, that these wastewater heat recovery systems can also help with dehumidification in areas. So that could be of interest. Just wanted to mention that one for because I was working on electrification as well, also natural gas and all that sort of thing. So we thought by doing wastewater heat recovery, it would help reduce the loads for doing electrification. The other one that I wanted to mention, because I know Santa Barbara College or one of the higher education institutions in Santa Barbara is also involved in this. Have you ever considered the solar powered workstations for the students? Are you familiar with those?
I think you're talking about the standalone ones with the battery.
Yes.
Yeah, we looked into those, but I think we were quoted like $250,000 or $300,000 a piece to install those, and we just did not have money at the time.
So the ones we did, the most expensive one was $20,000. And they have different models. So I'm happy I saw your email. I'm happy to follow up with you. And that company is possibly doing some special pricing between now and the end of the year as well. The last question I had, or kind of topic, was because I definitely understand all the funding things. Does your school district have like a energy savings fund set up where, based on all the energy that you're saving, that money is being put aside for future projects? That's what I thought I'd ask about.
We don't have that, but what our district decided to do is we decided to sell our renewable energy credits in the market and then use that as like the sustainability fund. So that's how I get my funding.
Okay, that's right. Well, maybe I can follow up with you later, but those were some of the questions I had. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'd love to learn more about the solar structure that you were just talking about. Thank you.
Okay, I'll contact you. Thanks.
Great. I have a couple of questions from the chat I want to make sure we get to. The first one is for Andre. Can grant funds for kitchen projects secure the necessary power for the project, or must those costs be paid for by the agency using separate funding? I think what that question is asking is like, can you get enough with grant funds, or do you need to get additional funding to generally cover a kitchen? And if I am wrong about that, whoever asked that question, please feel free to ask it. Did that make sense?
I believe, yeah, I think the grant, yeah, it can cover more. Well, you would have to file for it and see what's covered, but it's mainly for infrastructure.
Great. And if someone needs more clarification, please put it in the chat related to that. Actually, sort of tangentially related, is the funding a reimbursement or is it paid up front?
I do not know about that.
That's a good question. We could follow up with that. I often will take these chat questions and any that are unanswered, I'll post them so we can look into that. Let's see, there were a couple that were answered in the chat that I thought were really great, and I may call them out if we have a minute. But Desmond, there's a question for you. Were the door sensors connected via hardware or wireless? And is there a pro or con to either?
I did answer that one, but we went with wireless just to not have a bunch of wire molding, just for aesthetic reasons. But if you can have wired, I would prefer wired so you don't have to ever deal with the batteries and any sort of wireless dropout.
Great. Excellent answer. And then Omar, interested to know more about V2G credits. How much is OUSD able to generate? Is this limited or capped?
B2G credits we typically don't get those, and that's because we are not able to sell back since everything's through the Charge Ready program, and we actually have the Make Ready infrastructure. So SoCal Edison completed the entire process from that for us. However, we do get the LCFS credits, and we get that information. We have our third party that actually does through Nuvi. They calculate every kilowatt that we actually go through, and eventually they're the ones that actually send it back to us as a payment.
Great, excellent answer. And then I'll do this one for you too. What is the percentage of fleet operations? For example, has there been challenges with keeping all school buses operational? What planning strategies did the district consider to keep routes and field trips met in lieu of any fleet operation challenges?
That's a great question. Originally, when we first started, we were actually a little bit overwhelmed because we weren't sure how it was gonna function. Having buses that only have a specific amount of range, and we are in hill areas here. However, over the time, we started establishing, for the beginning, our drivers will come in, check out a vehicle in the morning, drive their morning route, perhaps maybe something after their first assignment. Then they will check out a second vehicle for the afternoons, and they were able to actually complete their other assignments in the afternoon while the other vehicle charged. So if they had to use multiple vehicles throughout the day, they could utilize those two vehicles. And now, because of the fast chargers, we're able to mainstream things a little bit faster, meaning that we can get vehicles out there charged as early as an hour, full charge. So they don't even have to utilize multiple vehicles now. They could just charge them within an hour and they're out the door again. And not every one of our drivers drives a lot of assignments throughout the day either.
Ah, that's awesome. And Ramiro, do you have anything to add about just general like fleet charging and management challenges that you've run into?
You're right. I'd like to go back to the V2G conversation about.
Oh yeah, I'd love that.
All right, so V2G, that SCER stance on V2G as a whole is we look at it as a grid asset. So we certainly support V2G. Currently, what's happening right now is we're still working with the commission for the V2G rate export tariff. In other words, the rate structure essentially that sets back the way that you're able to send energy back to the grid and get compensated for it. So as of now, like the formula for success, if you're going through charge ready transport, the suggestion would be to do, well, so the prescription would be to do the customer built option, because what happens there, the customer built option does allow integration of distributed energy resources. So solar, storage, generators, V2G, etc. So in this case, what a customer is able to do with V2G, they can install the V2G charger on the customer built. They would at some point do a successful Roll 21 interconnection agreement that we can assist with. And when that export tariff does come to fruition, which we're hoping it's not in the too distant future, then there would be that ability to do the export back to the grid through V2G. So there's a pathway for it. We just have to talk about it and make sure we give you guys the best planification for that.
Cool.
Now,
Sounds like when that clicks, we should do another webinar.
Sounds like a webinar topic. That's a whole webinar on its own right there. Yeah, let's say that one in regards to managed charging. Now switching gears here. So our TOE, or should I say time of use rate structure. So we talked about a separate meter right now. So Omar right now, his team, they have separate meters on all their projects. That meter has a special rate structure. So 4 to 9 p.m. is always the most expensive time of day throughout the entire year to charge. So fleets in this room, you might say, oh, well, our guys come in at 5 o'clock. We're going to get dinged from 5 to 9. And that's when it's almost like having a sprinkler system is what I referred to, right? So all your buses could come in at 5 o'clock. Your operators plug in. They do the post-trip inspection. And you're like, man, we're getting dinged from 5 to 9. Well, if you have managed charging, you could actually set it like a sprinkler where it turns on at 9:01 and it trickle charges throughout the next day. What's really cool about that too, and I'm sure you can speak to us. I know you guys have some telematics, so you might have Geotab, some Sarah, Verizon Connect, etc. currently. Well, with the chargers, there's also ways of incorporating that as well. So you'd be able to look on your phone and see, okay, did this operator plug in? Because drivers are drivers and they might not plug in. So that's a mitigation strategy for that. So it helps you on many fronts from a battery degradation perspective. So making sure that you're trickle charging, not jamming the battery full of power all at once is going to help preserve battery life. Then the conversation, the demand charges comes in, right? So if you plug all your vehicles in and you don't have that software already up and running, then what's going to happen is it's going to register the highest demand interval over a 30-day cycle within a 15-minute span, and it's going to times it by a factor. So in other words, it brings your rate up, which is what we don't want. So managed charging also helps trickle charge and keep it at a lower delta, so that way you're lessening that burden of demand charges. So that's the other perspective. So a lot of benefits to that. And then I will say we have a new load management program. So let's say like you deploy, like right now, like Orange USD, if you want to participate, right? So like you deploy, once we have 6 months of data, it's almost like going to a dentist, right? We could actually set up a call. We'll look at your charging habits and we'll prescribe and say, well, look, you're not charging the way you should be. Here's how you could save X amount of dollars potentially. And we could do that every 6 months and it's free. So take advantage of it because it will save your district cash.
Nice. Oh my God, that's such a good mic drop for the end of this webinar. We'll save you money. Thank you all for joining. I know folks had to like leave at the hour and the half hour, so thank you all for sticking around.